bake in Maya, you have to be under this rendering tab, so you have access to lighting and shading and transform maps, and this window opens when you press it. So now I have my low ball and my high ball with correct UVs and everything. Now I add my target meshes here, so add selected low, source mesh, add selected high one. By pressing these buttons, I can choose whichever maps I would like. I'll remove these because I just want to bake diffuse color and normal right now. And then I take the boxes, select where to bake, what format, under what name, and so on. And then I just bake. Now just isolate my low, and I have this. Display textures on. I also activate my light. Hide the high poly. And as you can see, it baked the color from my other object, which had two materials on it, and the normal map. There's a search envelope here which you can tweak to adjust the envelope that surrounds the high poly if you need that. In this case, I don't need it because it's just a ball, but you already know that. And down here you can set your resolution and other settings that you would like your bake to have. It's not the fastest baker. I never use this, but I want to present this just so you know how to bake in Maya, if you ever need it. That's all. So baking in Max, I'll use the same file I used in the UV part. So before I start, I have to do a few things like apply a default material to this mesh and everything else because I'm going to use the scanline renderer. Now, just to make sure, I'll use scanline here and I'll name my cube low. I'll duplicate it and name the other one cube high. And of course, I'll modify this one a bit just so I can bake something like a normal map. So I'll use the chamfer modifier, reduce the amount a bit, something like this, add a few more segments, and even a turbo smooth. I can collapse it and this, and I'll make it an editable poly just for good measure. Now this is my high. There are two methods in Max now, since the new one, for how to bake. I'll show you the new one, and then maybe I'll show you the old one as well. The new one is much better. So, in any case, I should be in high quality display mode. I'll also increase this OmniLight's power, or actually I'll just put it closer to the object and duplicate it a few times to have a better view of the object. Something like this. Now, let me start. So I select my low poly mesh. I go up here to materials, create edit maps, and I won't go to bake maps, render to texture here. This is the old method. I'll go to bake to texture. By the way, as I've shown you in the UV part, to add the UV or anything related to UVing modifier more easier, this is the same tab for it. So UVs, maps, and so on. Just add an unwrap UV here and everything will be fine. So now I'll go to bake to texture. This window will appear. Let me just resize this because it's very annoying in how It got so small. Okay, like that. Now here in this window, I'll choose a map. So I'll choose this normal map, add maps to selected objects. Here are the settings for it. So first I want to pick from list where I am getting the info. So I'll need to pick my cube high, add it. I'll set it to bake to UV channel 1, of course. My image size will be 124. I don't care about the padding at the moment. I'll leave all these settings at default because they're quite good. And I'll say output up here to original material and into my bump map channel. Now all of this is fine. I just have to set where this will go. I'll just put it here. I'll give it a name like cube N. And since I created this and picked my high object, this made a projection modifier over my cube, which is using a cage. So I can increase the amount of info the cage will acquire. So this is pretty good. And I'll press bake. Now the bake will run over here, and you can see that it just baked the normal map and applied it to my object. Now, because Max slots it into the bump channel is actually much lower in value than it should be. So its default value is 0, 3. So you should just put it to 1 to be for it to be displayed correctly. So now it displays the normal info correctly. And this is my cube low, this is my cube high. But since it's using the same material, the map is also applied to it. So let me just change it. So now, as we can see, this is my high poly model and this is my low poly model with the normal map on it. This is how you bake maps in Max with the new method. Now let me show you the old method. I'll just undo and move this cube back here and create another material and apply to selection. Oh, sorry, apply to my low one as well. And I'll create another one and apply to high. Okay. Now, if I go here to cube low and want to use the old method, I go up here to materials, create edit maps, bake maps, render to texture. This is the old window. Some of you might be familiar with. I set where the file should go, objects to bake, cube low, of course. I'll enable projection mapping from projection cube high. It's already using the projection modifier from my cube low, which was applied when I used the first method. Normally when you enable this, you have to select your cube again and it will create this projection modifier with pick, of course, like this, using the same method. So nothing's really changed. Just a window. And I don't want to unwrap automatically. I want to use the channels here. By the way, this is the place where to check how many channels your object has in case you've made too many by mistake or don't know how to check. Because I said in the UV part that I don't know where to check. Well, this is the place to check. So objects the same. Now this is where you add your type of map, normal map again. default name, and I want it to slot into the bump channel, bump map channel, and I want it to be 124. Output into normal bump, and output into source material. Keep source material and so on. Automatic mapping isn't interesting at this point because I'm not using it. And now I just press render. This file already exists, so I say overwrite, and it created this horrible bump map full of red errors, which is due to the cage when double cage, which happened when I picked the same object again. So let me just go here, delete this modifier, pick my high poly again, and choose. Okay, I had to pick twice. And now it created the projection, increase the amount a bit, like that, and render again. Overwrite, of course. And now it created this wonderful normal map, which is already applied to the material, of course. I just move this to the side. And again, I have to adjust the value of 0.3 to 1 so it displays correctly. And that's it for baking in Max. Okay, so let's bake in Blender. To bake in Blender, make sure that first you're in cycles, and then you go down here to the bake tab and open it. Choose the kind of map you want. I chose a normal map for now. And you need to have this selected to active ticked. This is very important because it can be quite annoying if it isn't. And I went through this a few times without it being clicked, and it was frustrating. Now, to use the high to low method, as usual, I have this, let's say, sculpted high poly cube under my low poly mesh, right? If I go into edit, you can see the UVs for it. I'll actually leave it like this for now. And I have to select my high first, then select my low, select the image I want to bake to, the image texture in the shader editor to bake to, press new, create an image. Now here in the UV editor, I can select this untitled image that I created. And after all this is done and ready, I can press bake. Now it will say it's baking down here, and it's done. Now I have to save this image. Save as, I'll just name it thing normal. I already done this to test it, so save. Now I just loaded the image here, or I'll load the image here and plug it into my normal map slot. And if I go to render, I can see that I have my low poly cube with the normal map on, and everything is according to plan so far. Okay, now let me bake some color. This cube has some color info on it. If I go here and say diffuse, I untick direct and indirect because I don't want any light info, just the color info from the high poly cube. So I'll make a new image here. Just close that one, new, let's say color map. Okay, open the color map here so we can see that it's black. Do the same thing again, select high to low, make sure this texture is selected, and bake. And now, of course, because my color information is vertex color, everything is white because it actually used the texture that was applied to the cube high. So let me just go to my material which is on the high poly cube like this. I'll add a color attribute node to access the vertex color. Go here, and now I can also see it because I'm a render view. I'll go back to my low poly matte. This is all selected again and press bake again. And now I can see that the color information has been transferred. And if I move one of my cubes, and actually save this image first and then load it. So save as thing color, load this map, and if I put it into base color, I can see that it has the same color now. You do the same for every map that you want to bake. It's kind of slow like this, so there are baking add-ons which I highly recommend that you try, but nobody in their right mind would actually use Blender to bake anything because it sucks. I really don't like it. This is very annoying. The only thing you bake in Blender is a texture you want to transfer after you've applied it in, after you've projected it on your mesh from the camera to remodel something as a reference. That's all. I wouldn't ever really bake anything else in Blender. It's not that it can do it or it won't. It's just that it's a lot to go through, and really there are so many simple bakers out there, much better, like Marmoset and Knald and so on.